I'm Amy Pinder here with Austin Whitney, and we're going to talk about music, inclusion, and accessibility. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Austin?
Hello everyone. I'm Austin. Thanks for having me here today. I am the co-founder of Accessible Festivals, and I run a company called 1050 Entertainment, which helps run ADA compliance, accessibility operations for many of the nation's largest temporary events, mostly in the music world. Do most of the large music festivals in America, but also sporting events and conventions, municipal events. And just inclusion at live events. That's what I focused all day, every day on.
Awesome. Thank you for all of the work that you do. Can you talk a little bit about how accessibility has changed over the years at music festivals and other live events, and also in the world in general?
My relationship with music festivals and why I do what I do, it largely started when I was 18. When I was 18, I was in a car accident that put me in a wheelchair. It severed my spinal cord. And going back to that time, my concept of like disability, like I didn't know anyone in a wheelchair before that happened to me. And I largely thought like my life was over, and I was really sad about things. Obviously, it was just like a really dark moment of my life. I just really didn't have much hope. And I, in like this, like the hardest time of my life, like many other people, I really fell back on music. Growing up, I was a music lover. I played music, and I've always found that music can just it can bring you through like the hardest things in life, whether it be a breakup or a tragedy or losing a loved one. That's one of the great powers of music. So I fortunately got to go to my first music festival a couple months after getting out of the hospital, and going to my first music festival, I this was the place where I was able to smile and laugh again and just like be a 19-year-old kid and just like not be dwelling on the inner anxieties I had about my future or about my disability, and was able to like just live in the moment. And like as superficial as that might sound, like 19-year-old like going to go to a concert, going to a music festival, it was music festivals. Like I fell in love with these. I was going to them all the time. That got me through the hardest time in my life. Gave me something to look forward to. And like today, that was 13 years ago. And I now have this understanding that like it's a great gift to be able to give to other people, because when I'm working at shows, I have people tell me all the time like, oh, thank you so much, this event has changed my life. And I know they're not kidding. I know they're not like overselling it, because I've been there before. Like the tears in their eyes are real. So when I started going to music festivals, I mean, most music festivals weren't accessible. I had friends who had to carry me down like stadiums, like one grabbed my wheelchair, the other like put me on their shoulders and helped me down the stairs. And to just be able to go see the music. A lot of times, like there would be accessible bathrooms, or like Lord, if there was a evacuation, it wouldn't have been something that was planned out safely for people with disabilities. So fast forward to today, 13 years later, most large music events in the country have an accessibility department, operating procedure, really thinking it through, and not just for guests with mobility disabilities, but also auditory disabilities, visual disabilities, issues involving like neurodiversity, um, people with dietary disabilities, whatever it might be. And so we've seen a lot of great strides. Most of my career has been spent in that space, and I'm very fortunate to be able to work on a lot of those issues. However, there is certainly a long way to go. But I'm really happy to be part of the Inclusion Festival Online, because as we are all stuck in our homes and it's so like needing to be on the internet all the time to interact with society, as we're not able to engage with civil society as we normally do in person, it brings up a lot of the inequalities that exist for especially people with visual disabilities or auditory disabilities or other disabilities that might interfere with their ability to like just interact with the internet, whether that be like video content that might need effective communication, like captioning, that might not have it, or it could be the way that the internet is programmed, or the website or stream is programmed specifically, so it might not actually be accessible to all. So those are the issues that I've been certainly working on a lot during this pandemic, but it shows you that, like, I don't know, that you're never done fighting this battle. There are always new issues in order to make sure that we live in an inclusive society that's open to everyone.
Yeah, you touched on a lot there, and I know you're not the only one that can relate to the life-changing experience that a music festival can offer. And it's really awesome that you took that experience and you made it your life's work and passion to make it accessible to more people than it already was. It sounded like you were really determined to be at festivals at a time where it wasn't so easy to be at festivals. And although there's more to do, it sounds like they've gotten a lot easier for people with all different types of access issues. So thanks. And I know that that inspired you to co-found Accessible Festivals. And can you tell a little bit more about how you did that and exactly why you chose to create Accessible Festivals?
Yeah, a lot of it just came again out of necessity, like me just going to music festivals as a kid. Um, I got interested in college on this concept of, okay, how do you take a music festival and how do you actually make it accessible to anybody who wants to go? What drew me a lot to like the operational aspect of music festivals, and what I really fell in love with, is the fact that a music festival is a temporary event. It kind of acts like a you get a blank slate every year that you're working on it. In that if you don't like something about it because it's not accessible because of like a barrier to entry or a structural problem, cool, you can make it better the next year, as opposed to like a fixed seated venue or a building that you're going to need to build, dress like get permits for a whole new, like you're gonna have to knock down walls and whatnot. I found the concept of temporary events just to be very freeing, that you could make really big changes relatively quickly. So I got into like working with a number of accessibility departments at large shows around the country and just learned a lot about what program access really meant. And then I kind of put that all behind me after doing that a couple of years. I went to law school at UC Berkeley and thought I was going to go into like corporate intellectual property law. And I got an opportunity through one of my favorite festivals. Some friends of mine, the Do Lab, threw an event called Lightning in a Bottle. And it was like 2012 that they gave me an opportunity to build my own accessibility program for an event that I felt very attached to, just on a very personal level. It's an amazing event, and my philosophies and my like values just align a lot with them. So they let me build an accessibility department for a show that had a lot of accessibility issues, and we got to see a community form there, and we also got to see that community grow between like 2012, 2013, all the way up to today, where it went from just like a small handful of people with disabilities who they really wanted to like truck through it and figure out solutions on their own, to like seeing that like the event wanted to put effort into making the event accessible, them telling other people with disabilities, and like just word getting out. And now like our disability community there, it's like we've seen it go well above 100 people, closer to 200 people at the show over the last 8 years. So like I just had so much fun with that. I found it just so rewarding. And then I got an opportunity the next year to word kind of got out that I was working in the sphere, and some other event producers came to me and asked, hey, could you also help us with the accessibility on some larger shows? When that happened, I went to a friend of mine, Oren Shani, and said, hey, I think he'd worked with me at accessibility at live events, and we decided like, oh, maybe this is a career path. Maybe it's not just something we do for fun on weekends, and we really love it. Maybe we could make a job out of it. So we started Accessible Festivals originally as a nonprofit, or we started as a nonprofit, with the goal of just improving accessibility at live events. And now it's merged into something slightly different over the last 7 years. Today I work with event producers through 1050 Entertainment, my company. It's like focused on like the operational side, while the nonprofit is really just geared on like the larger conversation. And there's a lot of different initiatives that we do. Really grateful that we get to be a part of the Inclusion Festival, because it's very aligned with the whole mission of wanting to see a more accessible and inclusive space where anybody can enjoy live music, regardless of their ability. So that's how it all got started, and I'm just really grateful that we've been embraced in a lot of places, and we get to do some cool things. And it's largely, other partners, other individuals, friends of ours who have really given us that opportunity, and have really defined like new paths that I never would have dreamed of in a million years. So I'm grateful that I just get to be a part of it, and I get to work alongside some really amazing people and help some just people that I'm very grateful to have in my life.
That's really awesome. I can fully relate to all of the beautiful relationships and connections that I've made in the festival space and working and enjoying in that space. So it's really awesome to hear about how Accessible Festivals has changed course a little bit as your other business, 1050, has grown and developed to be one of the nation's largest providers of accessibility services, and Accessible Festivals is an advocate working, on the larger social justice issues around accessibility and inclusion. I happen to think that inclusion is, extremely important, but also really important at music and wellness festivals, because at music festivals, people tend to be in an open heart space and are able to connect with others that they might not have a connection with, just walking down the street. So that's a little piece of what inclusion means to me. What does inclusion mean to you?
Just like building on what you say, what you had to say, like I have these like really strong feelings that it's not just like the effects that we see of improving accessibility and advocating for inclusion at a music festival. I really have a strong belief that like what you do on site can really reverberate into society, by creating events that are going to be inclusive to everybody. You get a lot of, like, again, when I was 18 years old, I didn't know anyone in a wheelchair, and yet by like building out events where you have more people with disabilities interacting, you create more opportunities for people to get to know other people in communities that they might not engage with every day, and get an insight into just like the disabled community and the real accessibility challenges that exist in society. And you get to kind of build a blueprint on what would be optimal just in society that we see. So to really directly answer your question, again, inclusion just it means equality, but on a very deep level. It's not just ramps, it's not just sign language interpreters. It's an entire culture that embraces people for who they are, all on an equal footing, and wanting to push forward that in any way possible, so that people can be living their best lives and enjoy their lives just like anybody else.
That's a really beautiful definition. I fully agree with that. And going back to something you said earlier, you talked about the opportunity that festivals afford you to make edits to the plans that you've put in place each year. So there's an aspect of inclusion that occurs because of the physical changes that you make to spaces, and because of the services and accommodations that are provided at festivals. And we touched on how there's more work to be done, but they're getting better. Can you talk a little bit about what your work looks like making festivals accessible at this time? I guess pre-COVID, when you were at festivals, and maybe a little bit what you're doing right now in light of COVID?
Yeah, sure. Again, I'm very grateful to be able to get to do the work that I do over at 1050 and Accessible Festivals. I'm very passionate about the music festival space. Again, I just think that regardless of what the music is, rock, hip hop, country, electronic dance, it's just important that anybody's able to enjoy any of those spheres. Personally, I've worked now, let's say, I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I've worked at about 150 most events, mostly music festivals. Today, like, my really big projects that I'm personally like involved in on site, I'm the ADA compliance director for Coachella Music Festival and Stagecoach Music Festival, its sister country show. Other big shows involve like Star Wars Celebration, which is a big Comic-Con for Star Wars, the PGA Championship, and then through the company of working with other coordinators on our team on a whole variety of different shows. And what goes into that is, again, just really figuring out and identifying what are the legal requirements under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but way more importantly, is figuring out how the event is going to be welcoming to people with disabilities, because that really is at the end of the day the goal. Unfortunately, in general, that's a philosophy that that the clients I get to work with, that they really strongly believe in. So that's, I mean, that's every component of how somebody with a disability and a wide ranges of disabilities, how they're going to arrive there, how they're going to camp, how they're going to get along the show, how they're going to be able to see the stage, how they're going to be able to get effective communication, how the policies involving service animals, and bringing in outside food for dietary disabilities. It could involve obviously like restrooms, vendors, figuring out your emergency evacuation procedures so that everyone's going to be safe, signage requirements. There's just a lot that goes into it, and I'm very blessed to have an amazing team of folks and work with some really awesome clients that get to really delve into those issues. And as much as you figure out a plan in advance, you're still going to need to tweak it, because you are working in live events and things just are going to change in ways that you couldn't predict until you're in the midst of it. But it's a really fun work environment because it is go, 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 and things rapidly change, and you just got to deal with it as it comes. It can be a little stressful, but I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. So very, very grateful to get to do that. There's, today, my life is different in the area of COVID-19 than I was really predicting. And, I'm also, like today, I get to work a lot on like reopening issues as they come up, because there's just a number of changes that do with COVID-19 and reopening that just didn't exist a couple months ago.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot on your plate that you didn't expect to have on your plate. But it's really especially nice to hear how open-minded some of the entities that you work for are to creating those welcoming and inclusive environments. And I'm glad that you're the one steering the ship at so many of the large events that we see in the country. So if any event producers or promoters are watching, how would they find you and connect with you and learn more about making their events more accessible and inclusive?
Yeah, if any event producer, they can just visit our website, 1050ent.com. And on there, they can reach out to us. Just contact at 1050ent.com, and we'd love to talk to you about how to make the event more inclusive to anybody who wants to go. Every event's going to have challenges, unique challenges, whether that be a show on a mountain side or a show on a beach or a show downtown in a city, a camping show that lasts a week, or a one-time show, municipal event. Or something in a convention center. Fortunately, I have a really good team of problem solvers who are just really passionate about this work, understand the legal elements of it, but more importantly, understand that in order to address disability accommodations, you have to really work on a human level. And work with people as they come to you, and just figure out solutions to those type of problems. So we'd love to help anybody. Again, this is my life work, and I feel very grateful that I get to do that. And if that type of work interests anybody else, love to talk about it, and always looking to work with new folks on these projects, because they are really fun. And again, it just feels really meaningful when you get to see like all the planning like just go into operation, and see a smile on somebody's face who didn't really know what they were getting themselves into when they bought the ticket, and then being able to see one of their favorite acts, and just being able to enjoy it. There's nothing quite like that, and I got a feeling that those smiles are going to keep me doing what I do probably for the rest of my life.
That's awesome, Austin. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. It's always a pleasure talking with you and working with you.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy Inclusion Festival, and thanks for joining us.